Hi, this is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And you're listening to Unexplained Arkansas, a new podcast that explores urban legends, mysteries, and the unsolved in the natural state.
We're just two best friends discussing the unexplained in Arkansas.
Hello, and welcome to Unexplained Arkansas. This is Amber.
And this is Lisa.
And we are podcasting from Lisa's house tonight. So we're both in the same spot. And it's always funny when we do that because we end up doing way too much and then sitting down to podcast and we're both like, oh, we're tired. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was just me that was tired today.
Nah,
because I just ate a bunch of Chinese food and we did a lot of running around before we got here.
We went all over Searcy and then got Panda Express from Harding's campus.
Yes.
True story.
We did.
Yes.
And also we just drew for our prize winner. We finally reached 1,000 followers on Facebook and 1,000
Instagram.
Yes, and 1,000 followers on Instagram. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, so go check that out. You uploaded that reel. It was Tracy Martin, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And all that is uploaded. We'll get with her to get her prize. So awesome.
It's going to be epic.
Yeah.
We'll have her post. So
yes.
And then we'll share.
So today we are going to talk about the case of Ruby Stapleton, Ruby Lowry Stapleton of Searcy. And we decided to create a 3-part series on Ruby Stapleton's case because there was just so much that has that went into the case, which happened in the 60s. And there's still so much to this day to talk about. There's lots of things regarding the opening of her case for her family and an FOIA request that we'll get into. There's just lots of different avenues that we are going to talk about. The background of the case, the suspects, and then the investigation and where the investigation is right now, because this crime was not solved. It is still an unsolved murder.
Yes. And
now,
go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I grew up here like you, and I had not heard about it. So until recently, you had. But.
I had, my great grandmother was, she used the same laundromat as Ruby, and she was very interested in this case. My mother and my aunts, they were telling me that she would talk about this all the time in the 60s because it just worried her sick because they, like I said, they never found out who the perpetrator was. And, this was something that kind of turned Searcy upside down for a little bit of time there in the early 60s.
Sure.
Yeah. And there were some suspects, which we'll get into all that. But for the most part, Searcy lived in absolute fear for a few months at the end of 1963. But we will talk about all that. So let's just start out with some background about Searcy. Searcy is the county seat of White County. The population right now is 23,098. But in 1960, the population was 7,272. So that's a big leap. So from 7,000 to 23,000.
We've had huge growth.
We have, yes. And of course, if you didn't know that, this is the town that Lisa and I reside in. So this is our hometown. We went to high school here. Yeah, all the things.
Yes, all the things.
All the things.
Allegedly. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we were there. You were probably there more than me. Okay, so Searcy is a college town as well, and there are 2 colleges here. There's ASUBB at Searcy, and then there's also Harding University. Harding is a private Christian university affiliated with the Churches of Christ, and it was founded in 1924, and its main campus is in Searcy. However, it was in Morrilton until 1934, which Ruby Stapleton actually helped with that whole move from Morrilton to Searcy. So,
and I'm just going to plug this real fast. So if if you're a new listener or haven't listened to many, go back and listen to our very first episode, which was the Galloway Gertie, the Ghost of Harding University, which was really like talks about how Harding University was the Galloway College of Women before it was Harding. So anyway, go back and listen.
If you're interested in Harding history, we have all of that in the very first episode.
Yes, or ghost or stuff.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to all of them, go back and just, go through all 18 of them.
Peruse them. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start out with Ruby's background. Frances Ruby Lowry was born February 27th, 1904. So her birthday is coming up. What is today, the 23rd? So her...
Yeah, no, 21st. No, 22nd. It's the 22nd.
Today's the 22nd. Well...
I didn't do anything today. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, she would be... How old would she be? 120
if she was born
years old? 1904?
1904, yeah. She'd be...
Wow. She'd be 120 if she was still alive today. Wow.
That would be monumentally amazing.
Okay. Well, she was born in 1904 in Davenport, Nebraska. She was the daughter of Benjamin Franklin Lowry and Clara Isabel Lowry. In the early 1920s, she enrolled in Harding University, which, of course, was at Morrilton during this time. And she was at, of course, Harding for a few years, and she was the only graduate in 1926 because the classes were pretty small back then.
Yeah.
So she was the only graduate. And while she was there, she was voted best all-around girl. Actually, she was voted best all-around girl 2 different years, in 1925 and 1926. And she was also the editor of the 1926 Petty Jean, which is the yearbook.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. And
so she was busy.
She was. And she was an English major. She participated in various activities and was very involved in academic and social activities around campus. And
she was very pretty. We've posted some pictures. Yeah, she
was gorgeous.
Very
she
pretty.
Had that 1920s flapper haircut and very stylish for the times. I went to the Harding Library. We went tonight, but I had also went Monday as well, and looked through a lot of yearbooks, and I looked through the yearbooks from the 1920s that she was in, and then I also looked in the 60s when she was back as faculty. So that was a really cool thing to kind of peruse and look through.
Yeah.
And she really was part of Harding history. She was a very important part at the beginning of Harding, and of course, regarding their move from Morrilton to Searcy.
Yeah.
So she had a lot. She had a lot going for her. So she, of course, came back to Harding after she got her master's degree. She got her master's degree from the University of Oklahoma in English, and then she came back to be a teacher for Harding University. She was at the time, she was a current English professor. Okay. She was an associate professor of English. And, if you're wondering the difference between assistant, associate, and full professor, for instance, I'm an assistant professor. I just started in my career 6 years ago, and I was an instructor, and then I moved up to assistant professor. And then the next step is associate professor and then full professor. So she was pretty far, in her career. Yes.
Gotcha. Did she, So you said, what year did she come back to Harding to teach?
She came back to Harding in the 30s, I think in 1934 or 32. No, 1932. She graduated from the University of Oklahoma in 1931, and then she was employed again by Harding in 1932. So she was in Harding from 1932 to 1963. So that's a lot of years.
Oh, wow.
She was there a long time.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so as a faculty member...
Sorry, that was Paris.
I was just going to say, what was that?
You have Paris behind you.
Yes, I was going to say, that was... Yes. As a faculty member, she supervised the moving of Harding College furniture from Morrilton to Searcy in 1934. And like I said, as a student, She was the editor of the Pettigene, but then she went on as a faculty member to sponsor the Pettigene and the Bison. And this is all according to the Harding Bulletin that came out in 1963 that had kind of a memoriam to her. Now, she was a member of National Council of Teachers of English and a charter member of South Central Modern Language Association. And she was a past secretary of the Arkansas Teachers of College English and a past president and secretary of the American Association of University Women. So very, very talented, very much school oriented. She was into all the activities, all the things.
Wow.
And yes, she also was responsible for founding the Harding College Press by donating pieces of equipment to them.
Oh, wow. Cool. So she, I mean, she really earned her best all around girl.
Yeah, I think she stayed the best all around her entire time, you know, as a young girl and then as a faculty member. She was very well loved, and according to the Harding Bulletin, she was a very friendly person, had a friendly smile and a helpful attitude. And also in that same bulletin, Dean Elsie Sears said that, "I feel that Mrs. Stapleton was one of the most loyal and dedicated teachers that were ever on the Harding campus, and one of the best loved. No one kept up with students after they left Harding as well as she did." So, yeah, very, very sad.
Yeah, to be a professor and be that loved by students, like teenagers or, you know, young people.
That's true.
That's
very
awesome.
True.
She was amazing.
Yeah, it's a hard job. It's the job I've had for 15 years, working with teenagers and young adults, and that's a hard job. So that's Ruby. That's just, and she did marry. And she did marry a man named E.R. Stapleton. And they had two children. And he was a professor as well. He was a professor of business at Harding College for a while. And then he moved on, and they lived apart actually for about 10 years. So during the time of this disappearance, they were not living together. He was living in Wisconsin, teaching in Wisconsin, and she was living here in Searcy, still teaching for Harding. But we'll get into all of that a little bit later.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So stay tuned, people.
Yes. So the disappearance starts on Tuesday, October the 8th. Ruby was, Ruby just had an average day, reportedly, a day like every other day. She taught her first class that morning around 9:00, and then her last class ended at 4:30 p.m. So she did all that as normal. Later on, after her daughter and niece left for the Harding Library, they all had dinner together, and then her daughter and niece, because that's who she lived with. She lived with her daughter and a niece. Yes, who were both Harding students at the time. And they left to go to the Harding Library, and then Ruby left soon too. And go ahead.
Oh, I'll interject here. So me and Amby did try to go locate her home. So it said that she had lived at 910 Center, which they didn't say which center. So it kind of took me a minute. But it looks like their house at the time, like right now, it's like the parking lot that's right there by the kind of the
main Harding sign.
Yes, the main Harding sign. And so they would have just walked over to the library, huh?
Yeah,
I mean, they would have just.
Yes, she lived very close.
So she lived
to the
right
university.
on campus.
She lived
it was like
right in front of one of the archway signs that are just at the north of the university entrance. And so it would have been just a very short walk for them to go to the library. So they
would have probably been really pretty too.
Yes. October.
That campus is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So the girls went to the library, and then Ruby left for the evening. She spent the evening at her son's house playing with her grandchildren. And her son lived on the south part of, well, he lived outside the city limits and south of Searcy. So probably near the 67 area. But she stayed at her son's home until approximately 9 p.m. and then left for the washateria on South Main Street in Searcy. And that is where the first part of this crime takes place, is in that washateria.
And it does say that, well, I did, because Amby is the lead on this, but she did ask me to read a little bit on it.
Yes.
And then she kept sending me stuff. Did you not?
True. All true.
Okay, but I did read, because I was thinking in my head, like, why was she at this washateria like that late on a Tuesday? You know what I'm saying? Like,
that
why?
was my first.
But it did say that evidently, like you said, her son had small children and their dryer had broken down. And so she was going to help them by taking his wet clothes. They had wet clothes and get them dry. And then she had a few things too. So yes, that was weird to me that she would be there, but that made sense to me knowing, hey, they had wet clothes that had to be dried. So it was like a necessity situation.
Yes.
So
now, an employee of the washateria also reported that she had seen Ruby there between 9 and 10 p.m. And then the worker left. But the worker stated that Ruby still had a whole wash cycle of clothes to go, which would be approximately 20 minutes. So she had another load of laundry in the washing machine when this worker left for the evening. And that was the last known physical sighting of Ruby, was right there at that moment. They would find out later. Yes.
And what time was that? Because I think
it was between 9 and 10 p.m. was when she was there. The washateria worker left at about 10:10 is why they put that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is the last scene.
Yes. And so this must have been a very quick situation, because at approximately 10:55, a washateria customer came in and found the place empty. And what I read was it was a young boy that was picking up clothes for his mother that they had left in the dryer. So after that, that they don't know. They don't know what happened between that 10:10 and 10:55.
Okay, so that about 45 minutes.
But they do know that she left the laundry in the dryer. So it takes about 20 minutes, it said, for one of those washing machines to go through the cycle. So obviously it was 20 minutes after 10:10, so that would make it 10:30. And then she put the clothes in the dryer, but the clothes in the dryer were still damp. So to me...
So they had been pretty fresh by 10:55 or whatever.
Well, to me, there's a 25-minute gap there. So you have the worker that left at 10:10, and then she still had that whole wash cycle of clothes. So you've got 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then the clothes were washed, put in the dryer, and then at that point, she was probably taken. And then about 20, 25 minutes later, that boy comes in, and the place is empty. So whatever happened during that very short time period. Allegedly, apparently.
Did it say if her, I know her clothes were still there, but did they find, because I know her car was still in the parking lot or whatever.
Yes, her car was still in the parking lot, and we'll get to that in just a second. Her car was still there.
Was her purse there?
Yeah, everything.
Okay, gotcha. Everything was just left.
I think her purse was there. Actually, I don't know for sure.
Because
that wasn't in the notes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I thought that was kind of, and maybe, I don't know, but I was just thinking, was her purse there? Maybe it was in the car. Maybe she didn't even take her purse in, but you would think she had, I know she needed money, but I think I did read something that said that it was already paid for. I don't know. She had already paid. Everything was paid.
Yeah. So I don't know about the purse, but that's an interesting question. Okay. So Ruby was reported missing at midnight. So all this that we found out about that happened at 10 o'clock, they found this out the next day. But Ruby was reported missing at approximately midnight. Searcy Patrol officers Aiden Woodruff and Dean Hunter were the officers that took the initial report. Now, let me tell you here that where I got most of my information, now I've found all kinds of sources. I used AY Magazine, the Democrat Gazette, but I mostly used old articles from the Daily Citizen from October 1963. And boy, was that time consuming, because I got through and I put pictures and video of the microfilm machine, and it was fun to me. I like stuff like that. But
I was about to say, you were having the time of your life.
I really
like
was.
in Dirty Dancing.
Yes. But
yes,
it took me a while to get through them all. But most of what I'm telling you today came from those articles. And people in the 1960s said a lot more in articles than they do today. So I got some good information, some of which I didn't find in the newer articles. And we'll talk about that. Like, I had no idea they tried to cancel Halloween in Searcy, basically.
Yes, I saw that. Like, they wanted
crazy.
Yeah, they were scared.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Searcy police chief at the time was Wayman Gorey, and the White County sheriff at the time, Wayman Gorey.
Gory,
like Goree, like Goree, Goree.
Ooh, Goree. Okay, but still, Gorey.
I think you say it Gorey. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So the White County sheriff at the time was Jack Price. I don't know either of these people. So the officer, I wasn't born in the 60s, but anyway, but I did
Me neither.
Well, but I did work in, police stuff for a while, but I've never heard of these two. Okay, so the officers...
can I interject? Sorry.
Of course, anytime you want to. My show is your show. Yeah.
It's my show.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so listen. So I did understand from my friend at the Searcy PD that at that time, there might have only been like maybe 6 officers even on the police force at that time.
That is totally true, because even when I worked for the police department, 16, 17 years ago, we would have 9 rotate out during the day plus the sergeants, but still that was 3 in one shift and then 3 in the next and 3 in the next, right? So I can totally see it being small.
And the population, of course, was only 7,000 at that time too, so it was just a much smaller town. I mean, people were leaving their laundry at the laundromat and just leaving it and coming back for it. So it was pretty trusting time frame.
Well, I've seen people do that these days too.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I had to go, remember when our power was out, like my entire neighborhood, and it was like, the second or third day of that, and I had to do laundry because I live with 4 boys, so I have to do laundry a lot. But I ended up going to the washateria, or whatever you call the laundromat, and my neighbor, some of the women from my neighborhood, we all went, and I was like, oh, this is so sweet. Like when all the women used to go to the creek and do laundry backcountry.
Oh my goodness.
And they were like, you're so weird, Amber.
Goodness.
I'm like, no, but that's,
you are
sweet.
weird.
I am.
I love you. I love your weirdness.
I like laundromats. I like it. I like the sound. I like the smell. I mean, I loved going in college. I would go at least once a week.
Oh my gosh. You're so great. Can I tell my washateria story?
Sure.
Real quick. Sorry. This is not probably the place and the time, but my dad is so quirky. And so he was giving my nephew, Brendan, a hard time like this summer. And he would be like, well, Brendan, let's go pick up some girls. I'll go with you to the washateria. We were like cracking up because, we thought he made that up. For one thing, we thought he was just like being ridiculous, but anyway, he was like, yeah, let's just go pick up some girls. So anyway, I can literally tell my dad that you were correct. And we were crazy thinking you were insane talking.
Well, I guess I could have gotten picked up in college at the washateria because I like to be there. I did.
Yeah. Hey, Amber, let's go to the washateria.
Yeah. Well, it was a very popular place. Like my great grandmother went there all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, this was why I think she was just so like fascinated by this case, and my mom said she went to that one to death. Right? Yeah, she went. They went to that one, so she knew her.
And for people in Searcy, like, because we went by there, tell them it was by the Angel's Food Mart.
Okay, yes, it was the washateria, and then what was called Angel's Food Mart, and it was out on South Main in Searcy. So to kind of tell you where it's at now, it would be a little north of what used to be our second hospital, which is now a rehab center, and kind of north of the public pool, all that. It's right when you come into town. So,
and it's right, like right now, it is blank, like that whole corner. Yeah. It used to have the Bible house or whatever. And now that corner is blank. Like there's
nothing there. There's nothing there. Yeah.
Did the Bible house burn down? Am I crazy?
I think so.
Did that happen?
I think that's what happened, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
So back to the case. So Ruby was at this laundromat the last time she was seen. This is what she was wearing. She was wearing a black and white checkered dress and black shoes. And of course, she had her black rimmed glasses that she always wore. She was a white female with black hair, brown eyes. She was 135 pounds and 5'5". So that's all the basics of what she looked like.
Slight.
So she was tiny. She was tiny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So White County Chief Deputy Benson Robbins was in charge of the initial investigation. So his name will keep kind of popping up in this as well. And so it wasn't until midnight, so it was going into October 9th, 1963, that...
And did her daughter call in?
Yes, her daughter and her niece came home and she wasn't there. And so, when she never returned from the laundromat, that's when they made the police report at midnight.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. And it took me a while, but I did find a picture of the laundromat and Angel's Food Mart. And it had been in one of those old Daily Citizen newspaper editions, but I have that on Facebook if anybody wants to look at that.
It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
I love old pictures.
Yes. Now, here's the other interesting thing, and we will get more into this aspect of the case in part 2. But the same night that Ruby disappeared, there were 2 businesses that had also been burglarized. And those 2 businesses were in the same area of town. Where this happened was what we call our industrial part of Searcy. So it's over there by Land of Frost and all the factories or whatever. And 2 tire places were burglarized. The tire service on South Main and then Brookshire Tire and Retreading.
Oh.
But only a very small amount of money was taken. And when I say a small amount, I mean a couple of dollars.
Wow.
And how one of them, and I remember reading one of them, like they broke in through a window in the door to get in and to get that. So just
to get
FYI,
a few dollars.
To get a few dollars, yes. So just that will come into play later. And like I said, we will talk more about that part in the second part of the series. So just to talk about the initial search for Ruby, and some of this was news to me, and I didn't know some of these details until I read the Daily Citizen articles from 1963. But on Wednesday, October 9th was when they started looking, and they estimate...
this happened on the 6th, correct?
8th. October 8th.
Oh, okay. It was okay. So the next day they were searching.
The very next day, yes.
Gotcha.
So between 500 and 600 Harding students, faculty members, and others, including the sheriff's deputies, Searcy Police Department, Criminal Investigation Division, and an FBI observer participated in a search or saturation canvassing of the Searcy area. Now, this is what's interesting. Only male students were asked to participate in the search. And that morning they had an assembly at the college, and the students were instructed to go door to door in Searcy and ask residents if they had seen anything that might be connected to the disappearance. They were also told to search local wooded areas, abandoned buildings, barns, ditches, anything like that. Now, Sheriff Price was quoted at the time in the Citizen as stating that deputies had already searched the wooded areas west and south of Searcy. This will also come into play, so remember that. The newspaper then quoted the FBI observer, who is not named, I could not find a name, as saying that he could not formally get involved until there was evidence of a kidnapping. Gotcha. So that's the first kind of, yeah, we'll have a couple of things.
I guess they're thinking she's a grown woman. But still, I mean, she left her clothes in her car, and I don't know.
Right,
that's weird.
Right,
that's weird. But can you imagine being those like Harding students and like?
Oh, I know. Yeah,
being told to like, I don't know. That's just I don't know. That's scary and sad.
It's very traumatic, I'm sure, for all, because nothing like this had ever happened before.
Yeah.
But
and
I will say
kiddos.
this, as far as being evidently a kidnapping, the former dean, Elsie Sears, was quoted as also saying, Ruby was a woman of unusually fine judgment, well-balanced, very practical. She is never highly emotional, and I can't imagine her being scared. She is resourceful and efficient and faces situations with calmness and confidence. All these qualities would not lead one to believe that she would simply wander off. She must have been forcibly taken. So this is quote unquote. And this is, was, like I said, in the Citizen from 1963. Harding also offered a $1,000 reward for information that would lead to her whereabouts and the successful prosecution of those responsible. And okay, so that's a lot to take in.
It is. Yeah.
And then at this point, investigators began thinking that there was a connection between those robberies I told you about and Ruby's disappearance. And that's a plausible explanation. Yeah.
Maybe she was wrong place, wrong time, or saw something. I don't know. Who knows?
Right. Well, on Friday, they've been looking. The Harding kids looked for a couple of days. On Friday, law enforcement officers received a tip about suspicious activity going on in a stock pond off of North Highway 16. So that's up there where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, they had a tip because they were getting tips from all over the place at the beginning of this. So they went and they dragged the pond and they found nothing. Then Dean Joe Pryor of Harding at this time told the Daily Citizen he believed they uncovered clues in the canvassing that they had done a couple days before that would prove significant. So in that same article, when they talked about dragging the pond, Dean Pryor said that he felt like they had found some clues while they were canvassing. What clues he was referring to, I don't know.
Okay.
Also, on Thursday, so back it up to Thursday, the Searcy Civil Air Patrol flew search missions trying to locate her.
Okay.
So they were searching by foot, by air. They were dragging ponds. They were looking. They were. So this is when it gets a little bit interesting. This is a moment. On Thursday, so that's October 10th, two men were arrested for allegedly calling Dr. E.R. Stapleton, Ruby's husband, and demanding money. The men who, they name them in the article, Chandler and Gary Chandler and Carl Karash, were caught making these calls from a Lubbock, Texas drugstore.
Okay.
Now, E.R. was born in Texas. When I did a search, just kind of looking at his background, he is from Texas. But at the time, he was living in Wisconsin. So the guys that were making these demands for money were caught because Stapleton kept them on the line for 30 minutes, during which time the FBI were able to locate them in the drugstore and arrest them.
Okay, I wonder, was ER still in Wisconsin, or had he come to Searcy? I just wonder.
I think curious. He flew. Well, see, I don't know if he
flew
received
in
the calls. That's not clear in the article whether he had received those calls while in Searcy or while still in Wisconsin. So I'll have to figure that out before we do part 2. But that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm making notes because we'll tell them later.
Yes, and we'll tell them why. We'll tell them.
Yeah.
Later. Yep. So according to the Daily Citizen, U.S. Attorney Robert Smith of Little Rock said they would be charged with wire fraud. So that's what they were going to be charged with.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking, I guess back in that day, that was what they could get them for. Okay.
Yes. And according to Lubbock police, the two men had been in the area since October 5th. So they were cleared of any charges relating to the kidnapping. Also, they did not make a specific reference to the disappearance of Ruby during their phone call with Mr. Stapleton. Now, Mr. Stapleton, I've seen him go in articles. I've seen them call him Ray, seen them call him ER. His gravestone says Emmett Ray. So I'm not really sure which he went by. So we'll just call him Dr. Stapleton from now on, because he was a professor of business. So, and I'm not sure what his first name, what he liked to be called. So, okay.
But he had his doctorate, I guess.
Yeah, because he's referred to as Dr. Stapleton. So I'm assuming he has doctorate. All right. So,
or his Or he just liked for people to call him doctor. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Maybe.
I'm just kidding.
Okay,
that was in Sleepless in Seattle.
Sorry, yeah, I haven't seen that in forever. All right, so by the next week, by October 15th, Searcy Police Chief Wayman Gorey said there had been no break-ins reported in the last 2 nights. He said we are taking extra precautions and asking all local residents who have any knowledge that might be helpful in this investigation to contact us. Then on Wednesday, October 16th, the sheriff's office stated to the Daily Citizen that they had reached a point where they just have to wait for something to develop, quote unquote. And there was nothing to report. Yeah.
They had kind of done all they felt like they could at that point, I guess.
That's what they said.
Okay.
In fact, Benson again on Friday stated to the paper, we are doing all we can. So yeah, you're right. We are doing all we can with what we have to work with in an attempt to solve this disappearance. So yeah, they worked for about, I guess, a week trying to run down leads. Like I said, they got tips from different places. There was the mention of clues or interesting information that had been gathered during the canvassing, but there was still no sign of Ruby.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Scary. I'm sure I don't know. Her poor son was probably like devastated I don't know.
Yeah.
I just can imagine if it was like my mom and
yeah. And her daughter and her niece. Yeah. And they were just college kids. I mean, I guess the boy was a little older, but they were still just kids, and their mother had disappeared. Just terrible.
It is terrible.
Okay. So almost exactly 10 days later, Ruby's unclothed and decomposed body, unfortunately, was found in a dry creek bed 2 miles northeast of Beebe. And I actually drove that way on the way home from work yesterday to try to just look at the area. I'm not sure if I found the exact location, but I was in the right area. And it's very close to Highway 67. And it's just right off this gravel road. She was found in the Bull Creek area by a man who was squirrel hunting. And the area...
Can you imagine coming up on that?
No, absolutely not.
That'd be awful.
Yeah. The area was wooded, but only a few feet from a gravel road and a few hundred feet from US 67, which is where I was yesterday. And I put pictures of that also on Facebook. Ruby was found approximately 15 miles away from the Washteria.
Wow. So it kind of feels, I mean, like perhaps someone that at least knew that area. I mean, I don't know how accessible, or I mean, you said a gravel road, correct? I mean,
yeah, it was the first, like if you're going south towards Beebe on what we call the old highway, it is the gravel road right before you get to Bull Creek.
Wow.
Yeah.
So someone, I don't know, you had to be a little bit familiar at least. Perhaps.
Maybe. I mean, because no one lives down there, even now. I mean, I drove that way and I didn't really see very many houses, anything. Yeah, it was very desolate still to this day, 60 years later.
Goodness.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So according to the 1963 October Harding Bulletin that we pulled, Dr. George Benson, who is the namesake of the Benson Auditorium, by the way, he announced the discovery of Ruby during a time when the students were all together. They were watching a movie, and they were watching the movie Imitation of Life. It did state which movie they were watching. The body was then immediately taken to UAMS in Little Rock, where an autopsy was performed by County Coroner Alan Foster. Foster stated in the report that a wad of cotton about the size of a man's fist was found in Ruby's throat. The throat also showed a fracture that appeared to be from strangulation. So her death certificate, which I pulled her death certificate, lists strangulation as the official cause of death. It had also, been a very hot October. And if you're not from Arkansas, if you're one of our listeners that are not from Arkansas, sometimes we still have pretty hot Octobers. humid Octobers. Mm-hmm. Yes. And this was one of those times. There were 90-degree days during that time period when she was missing. So her body had been exposed to those 90-degree days of 90-degree heat days for at least a week. Yeah. So that made identification very difficult. So to get a proper identification, they had to use dental records, which had been provided by Ruby's dentist in Searcy. Now, remember I told you that she was wearing that black and white checkered dress. Well, that was not found anywhere near the scene. And, her shoes were not found. And I'm assuming her glasses weren't found either, because they only found a button and a part of a belt that the family recognized as part of what she had on. Now, according to AY Magazine, who did an in-depth study on this case several years back, there were 3 or 4 long abrasions or cuts on the abdomen, starting in the area of the genitalia and running upward to the areas of the breasts. The coroner could not determine, like I said, though, the exact time of death or if a sexual assault had taken place due to that advanced state of decomposition. So we don't know. They do not know if there was any kind of a sexual assault that took place. Yeah.
Just to be dumped like a piece of trash. Like, so many times that happens, in these cases that people are just dumped, and it's just, it's just sad. I mean, it's just sad what happened to her. And can you even imagine like the cotton ball, that in itself, just to be struggling and then to be I don't know. It sounds horrific. Like whoever did that was horrific. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so according to Jack Price, who of course was the sheriff at the time, we've had to work almost in the dark from the start on this case, because until the body, we didn't really have a crime to investigate, which I don't know if I agree with that, because the woman was gone and it was obvious that she had been taken.
Yeah, but I guess he's saying that they really didn't
have... no crime is what he's saying.
Yeah, and I guess that's still to this day a problem, just like with, we've mentioned the Jared Green thing.
Right.
Go to our website, go to Justice for Jared. But anyway, yeah. I guess it's hard for them to do anything without a body, but they knew that obviously she was, something happened. So
Right. So interestingly, 2 19-year-olds, one from BB and one from Judsonia, were arrested at the same time. I found this article in the paper, and they were charged in connection with several of those White County break-ins. So there had been several during that time. So like I said, this was a story from the same newspaper. It did not list their names, so I don't know exactly what happened after, but the article did say that the teens admitted to break-ins in Kensett and Judsonia. And as of that And as of that publication date, there were no charges. Yeah. So the body was found and it was taken for the autopsy, and then it was brought back to Searcy. Ruby's family then held a funeral on Wednesday, October 23rd at the Harding College Auditorium. Dr. George S. Benson read her obituary and talked about her life of service. And then the funeral address was given by Dean Sears, and then an a cappella choir sang.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, I bet that was beautiful and so sad for all the students and faculty and their family. Yeah. Oh, just so sad.
Very, very sad. So Dr. Benson said the murder is extremely shocking, and she was evidently killed immediately after being taken from the washateria. And the body was probably deposited where it was found the same night. It is hoped that the reward money will lead to the discovery of these responsible for her death. And that's quote unquote from the Daily Citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in my head, I guess, did it ever mention like if they had because whoever did this had to drive. I mean, she was dumped 15 miles away and they didn't use her car. So I'm just wondering if they had any type of of, tire tracks or something in the, the parking lot or anything
that
like that.
I don't know. But like you said, her station wagon was still sitting in the parking lot of the laundromat. Yeah. So, years went by. And when I say years, I mean years went by. And there were just fewer and fewer leads. People, like I said, began to forget about it. Like you said, you weren't very aware of the case. And I knew
Never heard about it.
Some of this stuff I've found out this week I didn't know. So, yeah. So a lot of this has kind of just fell into the shadows, But I will tell you this, that right after her disappearance, the town of Searcy was really on edge. And I could tell that because I read all the newspapers from the week of and the week after, and then up until I think October 31st is when I quit reading. But the articles, you could tell the reporters were very invested in this and that they were asking all the right questions. So, I don't know. I mean, it was a crazy time in Searcy, but the city officials wanted to curtail the Halloween festivities that year because, well, for three reasons. First, because of this unsolved murder. Secondly, because there were so many break-ins in White County. And third, because people were putting their guns by the door. People had weapons out, and you've got trick-or-treaters, you've got prankers on Halloween. And so the city thought that it was just a very bad combination. So they had talked about doing a curfew of 7 p.m., but they didn't do a curfew. They just asked that parents and children please quit trick-or-treating and go inside by 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
and they wouldn't. Yeah, but they wouldn't enact a curfew unless they saw a bunch of people still out on the street on Thursday night. Yeah.
Yeah. As a parent, I would have been like, "Yeah, that sounds good."
I can probably get with that too. But mayor as a
teenager, let's be honest, as a teenager, we've been like,
yeah.
But as a parent, yes.
But the mayor of Searcy at the time was Leslie Carmichael, which I'm assuming that's what the Carmichael Center is named after, but I don't know. I'm just assuming.
I believe it is. There's like a plaque there.
Yeah. Well, he said, we realize that Halloween is a time when our young people like to have a good time and let off steam, but we also are very conscious of the danger to their safety brought on by the edginess of the community over the tragic murder of Mrs. Stapleton and the series of break-ins in the area recently. We certainly don't want to have another tragedy because we failed to bring the situation to public attention. Yeah. So the mayor's reference was to reports that many Searcy citizens, like I said, had armed themselves or placed shotguns near doors to, to curtail the possible intruders. And they knew that, pranking, that's just kind of, part of it. Also something that I found very interesting, like I said, the citizen was all over this for weeks and weeks, and then it just kind of stopped. But the police said, in the newspaper article that I'm looking at right now, police officials and county law enforcement officers today joined in a pledge to inform the public of any and all information on the murder and break-ins as soon as this information is considered pertinent.
What just hit me, though?
What?
So literally a month after her funeral, so we're talking November 23 of 63, what happened, which would have taken
JFK. Is that JFK?
So it just hit me. I was like, oh, so that probably, I'm just saying, for like a month in the paper, they were probably all about Ruby.
Everybody was in shock at that time.
Yes. So then it would have been all about JFK.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's a really, really good point. Yeah. Ugh. But like I said, they kept talking about the tension in the city. They also said in the same article, law enforcement said that one contributing factor to the tension was a seemingly endless line of totally unfounded rumors concerning the investigations.
Yeah, well, of course. Small town. That happens now.
Town. Yeah,
that happens now.
That does.
When it's not a murder.
Exactly. Okay, so we are going to look at, we're going to look very quickly at the suspects, and then we will talk more about each one of these in episode 2. But I wanted to at least look at the suspects. So, of course, you know, when a woman disappears or when a woman is murdered, who's usually the first person that police look to?
I think there's literally a T-shirt that says it's the
spouse. Yes, yes.
The husband did it.
Yeah, I mean, but of course we know that's not true. It's not always like that. But in law enforcement,
and we talked about that in the Maud Crawford deal.
We did. But usually they'll look at the husband first because, and they do this because statistically, that's usually
it's someone you know.
It's someone you know. Exactly.
Husband, boyfriends, whatever.
At one point, and this is, I'm just going to say he was allegedly a potential suspect. Okay. This, Emmett
ER
Ray
was
Stapleton.
correct.
ER, yeah, Dr. Stapleton. So Dr. Stapleton was born in Hunt County, Texas in 1905. He and I think he and
so he was a little younger
Ruby,
than her. Wow.
He was a year younger. But they married in the 30s and they had, you know, their children. But like I said, they lived apart for 10 years. So at the time of this disappearance, he was not in Arkansas.
Gotcha.
He was in Wisconsin teaching.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. So in the beginning, like I said, this was a very active, involved case, and LEA, they looked at everybody, everything. They had several tips, and they started looking at Dr. Stapleton. Now, this is according to AY Magazine, who did an in-depth study on this, and I think they did look at some of the case file. They said that law enforcement conducted an in-depth interview with Dr. Stapleton. Ruby and he were still legally married, but had been living apart for 10 years, and he was teaching in Wisconsin at the time. Now, police looked at the possibility of Raymond's sexual orientation and the relationships that he had had with men as something that could have led to a blackmail plot. So that was one of their early theories. Now, the couple did own property and they did have bank accounts. They had some money. So the file says, you know, to prove this, the file says Ruby wrote checks to Raymond when he needed money. And according to AY Magazine, which was the only place I saw this, but he was a big spender, whatever. But Ruby deposited over $13,000 in June of 1963. And on the same day, wrote Dr. Stapleton a check for $7,617.
That's a lot of money, even now,
but
much
it's
less
splitting
than.
it down
That's
the
interesting.
Middle. Yeah, it is interesting.
Yes, that is interesting. Did they sell something? So they sold something? Maybe that was his part. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, that could have been a house. I mean, at the time, you could get a house for $13,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So who knows?
Cars were like $5,000. I don't know. Brand new.
Yeah. And I'm not speculating. I'm just, you know, they did have things that probably could have sold for that much money.
Yeah.
But according to the police file, Raymond, so he was called Raymond in the AY article. That's why I'm so confused, because I've heard it being called ER Stapleton, and then I've heard it be called Raymond. But
lots of aliases.
Yes, but he provided police with a list of his a list of names of his relationship partners and phone records. Now, after this, the police interest in him as a suspect diminished.
Okay.
Now,
so they looked at him very deep, and then they figured out, I mean, he must have, I'm sure he passed whatever they were looking at and alibis and
then,
such.
Interestingly enough, Stapleton died in 1968 in Emporia, Kansas, and he was only 63 years old. And
so he was in Kansas.
Yeah, he was in Kansas by that time, by 68. And he's buried in Mount Carmel Cemetery in Wolf City, Texas. So he's not buried with Ruby.
With her.
Yeah, and we actually saw Ruby's grave today. That was one of the places we went when we were doing some research. And she is by herself, and she's in the Memorial Gardens out there on the east side of town. So... yeah.
Yes. Her. We'll post, and it was very pretty. Yes. Very, very pretty.
So that is suspect number 1. Now, suspect number 2 is Orrin Ray Hayes. Now, this was the suspect that I heard quite a bit about when I first started looking at this case, because this was a suspect my family had heard about. So there was a lot of chatter about this one in the town of Searcy.
That he was crazy, right?
Well,
I don't know.
Well, according to AY Magazine, who, like I said, had some kind of access to the file, several people around town, probably my nanny, tried to connect. No, I don't know.
Probably.
Bless her heart. You know, she liked to tell ghost stories too. I mean, she was just like me. Yeah.
She
loved ghost stories and anything just in that dark kind of whatever.
Yeah.
So, okay. So several people around town tried to connect this Hayes dude to the case. The motive, they thought, was retaliation, because Ruby Stapleton worked really hard to keep alcohol out of the hands of Harding kids.
Okay.
That was, I think that was her pastime. And that's
he worked really hard to put it in their hands?
It sounds like he did. I think he might have been a bootlegger or something like that. Allegedly. Let me just say a big allegedly all the way. All of it.
Allegedly, he was crazy and giving drink to the Harding.
Did you say giving drink?
Yes.
Okay. So rumors circulated also, and Searcy's like every other town, rumor gets going and it'll circle around 10 times and sound completely different. So who knows? But the rumor circulating, this is according to AY Magazine, was that Hayes had taken some bloody clothes to a laundromat, and I'm not sure if it was the same one, after the murder. Yeah.
That would be weird.
Yes. And not
telling.
Smart. Yeah.
No.
And that his
really
vehicle
dumb.
was seen. Oh, wait, it was. I did write this and I forgot it.
Oh.
It was the same one. What the crap, man?
Surely not.
The crap.
That does sound like a good rumor. I mean, seriously, like bloody clothes to the same one.
So, yeah, he wasn't smart. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
allegedly.
Yes. And like I said, at this time, people were just scared to death. Like, one of my aunts said she would never go back, or she didn't like to go back to that laundromat after this happened. It scared her to death.
Her.
Yeah, she would go with Nanny. She would go with Nanny to do clothes, because Nanny didn't get a washer dryer, till well into the 60s. So she lived in that area for a while. So she'd go to that laundromat and take, her granddaughters with her or whatever. So nobody wanted to go after that. So
I'm so thankful we have, washer and dryers in our homes.
Yeah, I am too. Even though
Except
I do,
for
like
you,
I
when
said, I do like a laundromat.
When your neighborhood. Yeah, I guess
I was more excited about going to that, because let me tell you, I live, not to tell everybody where I live, but I live on that side of town. And so there is a brand new laundromat actually across the street from that old one. Yeah, think about that. It's right there across from the bowling alley. So yeah. There is a washateria there, but it's not the same one. Yeah. So police did get a hold of Mr. Hayes, and they interviewed him. And, a month after the homicide, he was held. It says he was held for questioning, and the death. Oh, wait. No, this is different. So he was interviewed and released. Then a month later, now write this one down on your little notepad you've got going over there. A month later, a month after Stapleton's homicide, Orrin Ray Hayes was held for questioning in the death of his own wife, who died of strychnine poisoning.
Oh, my.
Yes. I forgot that little tidbit. All right. So, however, the county coroner said in an investigation that it turned up no evidence to support bringing charges, and ordered Hayes's release.
Wait. So what?
Yes.
So she died of poisoning.
Yes, and I just now remembered. I was told that story before by one of my family members about the strychnine poisoning.
That's weird.
Yeah. Okay. So then in 1971, he was charged with possessing stolen property. The case was dismissed. And I'm like, what in the world? This has to be the luckiest dude ever.
What's up with this?
What is up with this? The same year he was convicted, though, of grand larceny and burglary. but the conviction was overturned.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
This guy is like a cat with his 9 lives or something. What's up?
I was going to say like Teflon.
Who does he know?
Sticks.
Who does he know?
I don't know. But we will talk more about Orrin Ray Hayes in episode 2. So to be continued with him as well. More to come. Yes. We're going to do Orrin. Yes. We're going to do a deep dive into the suspects and a deeper dive into the crime scene in number 2. We're just kind of scratching the surface on this one.
This has a lot to it.
This is a lot, yes. Third suspect is Roger Burns. And according again to AY Magazine, investigators were questioning sex offenders and known peeping toms and flashers. Okay. So they were rounding up all the flashers and the peeping toms and talking to I just keep thinking of that Ray Stevens song, the streak. I don't know. Yes. They just kept rounded them up and talked to them.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Because, and this is true. This is statistically true that peeping toms, like doing all that, that's like step 1. Right.
Yes.
So you do that. That leads into some of this other stuff. So, in 2014,
like Night Stalker.
Oh yeah. True. So in 2014, this aspect of the case was revived. Okay, when Colonel J.R. Howard speculated that an Air Force radar technician named Roger Burns could have possibly killed Stapleton. So so this is a new suspect. This is number 3 if you're writing this down.
And this was if you're taking 2014.
Notes. Yeah, this was in 2014. So Roger Burns is this one. So while stationed near Belleville, Illinois in 1965, Burns confessed to abducting a woman named Roseanne Curran from a laundromat and killing her.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
He wrapped the body in a blanket and dumped her in a wooded area.
That does.
Yeah.
I mean, close.
Now, he came back the following night. So he came back again. And when he came back the second time, he cut off her clothing and mutilated the body.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Burns pled guilty to Curran's murder, saying he had uncontrollable urges to torture women. He said the impulses were occurring more frequently and was becoming more difficult to resist. So this is from AY Magazine. So then,
what year was that? Sorry.
1965.
So he was convicted of that in 1965. So he could have easily have done the Ruby in 1963. Well,
yeah.
Maybe,
so
alleged.
So Special Agent ASP Special Agent David Moss then tried to determine if Burns had been stationed at the missile silo here in White County at the time of the murder. You know where that's at, right? It's North Highway 16. Yes.
Yeah, so it's it's right there.
So he contacted several departments, and he could not locate any files that would corroborate that. The records from 1963 were destroyed in 1994. You never destroy records.
I know, people. Oh, yeah.
So Burns was sentenced to 198 years in prison for that one. He was paroled, though, in 2008. He then violated his parole and was committed to a mental institution in 2010. So that's the Burns story so far. But we will go back to all of those.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of wow factors in this. So the very last thing that I wanted to talk about before we end part 1 is the fight to get information that Ruby's family has faced, in the last few years. So, many, many years have gone by, and the case has been pretty much at a standstill. So in 2013, Ruby's granddaughter filed a request under the State Freedom of Information Act, saying she wanted the records so she could gain closure for her mother and her family. So this all happened in 2013. She was denied. Yes. She wanted to look at the entire file, and they said no. They said that the case was still being open or still being investigated.
Yes. And do you want me to go into this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So Amber did get me her name and and her name is Heather. So I will say that.
She's written about it on several platforms online.
And she does have a Facebook group. So just FYI on that. But she did mention that actually in 1993, the family, like, they were moving to New Jersey. So they were leaving Arkansas or whatever. And so her and her parents were able to get access to the file. Like, they let them go through it in 1993. And at that time, it was super thick. So they saw the information, and it was a lot of information. So yes, like you were saying, in 2013, she had actually wanted to get the file, and then she actually had wanted to submit Ruby's file to, like, the Cold Justice, I believe. Do you remember that?
Yes, the TNT Cold Justice show.
Yes. And so in order to do that, like, you can't actually do that, evidently. It has to be done by the law enforcement agency. So she had actually reached out, of course, the White County Sheriff's Office were like, yeah, we would be glad to. And then the Searcy PD said yes, but actually they didn't have the file. I mean, Arkansas State Police had the file. So when she reached out to them to get the file and to ask for this, it was all rejected. And then she had to go into, like, fighting for it. It went all the way to the Supreme Court.
Well, Arkansas Supreme Court.
Yes, Arkansas Supreme Court. And she did actually finally get a copy of the file, but it was, like, illegible. I mean, and it was tiny. And she did say that she had to actually go to the headquarters to get legible copies. So it was nothing like what the family had viewed in 1993.
Was it the same size? Was it,
no.
Was it redacted?
It wasn't redacted. She just felt like it was almost pieced together. Like, it was not the same. Like, what they had seen back then was huge, like a huge file. Right. And this was kind of like thrown together. So
what was so interesting to me when I was reading about this FOIA, because that's what I used to do. I used to be a public information officer. And so I was all about this, and I was, reading about the request and whatnot. So in November 2013, after she'd been denied, the Keach law firm made another formal request under FOIA to get a copy of the case file and other materials related to the Arkansas State Police investigation. Well, ASP denied the request, again, maintaining the investigation was ongoing and the information was exempt from FOIA. So, and I had cases like that too, where I just couldn't talk to anybody because it was still under investigation. But at the time, it was actively being investigated. So that was very much true.
And this file was over 50 years old.
Yeah, at the time it was 50 years old. And that was what their argument was. So in December 2013, Keach filed a complaint against Arkansas State Police in circuit court, asking the court to compel disclosure under FOIA. And then the Arkansas State Police once again maintained the material was exempt under FOIA because it was the subject of an open and ongoing investigation into Stapleton's murder. So, and it was, and there was a little bit of time where both parties were filing various things, affidavits, whatever. So eventually the court conducted an in-camera inspection of the case in January 2016. After this review, the court found that the case is not an open and ongoing law enforcement investigation. The court also found that the claimed exemption did not apply and accordingly ordered Arkansas State Police to turn over the file. Then Arkansas State Police appealed and a stay was granted pending appeal. And it just kind of went on and on and on. Let's see, Pulaski County Circuit Judge Mackie Pierce in August 2014 told investigators that they must either prove to him that the investigation into Stapleton's murder is ongoing and open or provide a copy to the family. And then again, we have another person that came in, Jennifer Merritt, on behalf of the police, arguing that the open records law exempts open and ongoing investigations from disclosure. Now, according to them, it was assigned to the Special Investigations Unit of Arkansas State Police, which is actively pursuing leads recently generated. quote unquote. So disclosure of the contents of the Stapleton case file would hamper police's ability to investigate the crime, according to them. So very, very, very interesting. Sorry.
I probably would be like, you had 50 years.
So then in April 2017, Justice Rhonda Wood wrote the unanimous opinion, no charges have been brought or appear to be imminent. The victim's family and the public are entitled to know how the officials in this case, i.e. law enforcement, performed their duties. So this dispute just went on and on and on. But at the end of the day, they were allowed to look. But according to the family, it seemed to be a different size file than what they had seen in 1993 when her mother was allowed to look at the file. And from what I read, I think that ASP brought it down to the White County Sheriff's Office and let them look at it there in 1993.
Yes, in 1993. And just a totally different file. So I mean, I don't know, but I can imagine in 50 years, you always hear about things going missing, evidence missing, things happen. And I know that things happen, but I think that all of that kind of backpedaling or trying to put the family off was really so they could get together file. I think it was probably like an, oh no. Like, where did this go? I mean, seriously, just needed time to even get it together because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
Well,
I mean, you did say in 2014 that they were talking about this Burns as of 2014, correct?
And that's probably where that argument came from, that they had just generated a new lead. Now, I don't know if the Burns, I don't know if that went anywhere because I have found nothing else on it. But I don't know. I will tell you this, working in law enforcement I was in that position where that's what I would do. People would file FOIA requests with me and I would have a certain number of days to get them their information. But there were times when I would say this is under investigation and I can't release it. But it is because it was actively being looked at by, CID or whatever. So
yes.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if it is active.
But 60 years or 50 years, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if they were just so frustrated, she said, and of course, just
I'm sure I would be too,
disgusted and frustrated and like, are you serious? I mean, it's like, thanks. Thanks. So I don't know.
This went from in the 60s probably being one of the most talked about cases in Searcy to now here we are 60 years later and a lot of people don't even know about it. But there's never been, like you said, there's never been justice for the family and there's never been closure.
Yeah. And no one had been arrested and whatnot. Yeah. So I'm proud of that judge's response.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
And like I said, this is what I did for a long time was generate FOIA responses and requests and whatnot. But I really feel like they should have been able to look at that file without all the to-do. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a justice or anything, but that's my opinion.
Well, 4 years of paying attorneys to fight for it. That's all that, don't even get me started. But yeah, that's terrible. So,
yeah. Here we are. Okay. That was act one. We still have a long way to go because there are some details about the initial suspects, and then hopefully we are going to get to take a peek at a few things in the coming weeks. And we are going to put part 2 out pretty soon, but then part 3 may be a couple of weeks down the road. We don't know yet. So this is going to be a series, but this is only part 1, guys. So if it feels like we haven't really completed our mission, it's because we haven't. We're still actively pursuing this story, and we're both very invested and very interested because this is our hometown.
Yes.
And it's one of a handful of unsolved cases that we have here in Searcy. So, we would love for this family to get justice and closure.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. We wish that, just for everybody. It's just so sad. It's like, I wish that everyone that did something like terrible, like this bad, would like on their deathbed, like write a note or leave it. You know what I'm saying? Like just tell people what you did.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Just
I
please.
mean, and we said, we
so
said this
awful.
when we,
or just don't do bad things, but
exactly.
whatever.
We said this when we started, that some things are just never going to be explained. I hope this one is, though.
Yeah, I hope so.
that, and you said something earlier about DNA, and to my knowledge, there was,
I didn't know. Yeah, I really didn't know.
DNA
that was one
really
of our,
wasn't. I mean,
I just wondered if they had physical evidence or even kept it to do the testing and get, because nowadays the testing
I
is
honestly
just
doubt
so.
it.
I mean, I doubt it too, because if they didn't even keep the real file from 93 to 2017, they lost stuff in between. They probably didn't have. I mean, and it's the 60s. I don't know what they would have kept. Would they have kept fingernail? I mean, now you would think, okay, you're gonna, make sure you get all the hair and fiber, fingernail clippings. Like, you're gonna do everything, even in even in the 90s they would do that. So I don't know.
The 90s they did that because they knew it was coming. They knew that DNA was coming. It wasn't quite there yet, but they
I wonder did. I guess that's my question to people. If let me know, law enforcement. Like, when did you start thinking about all that physical evidence, like hair, fibers, fingernail clippings? I mean, obviously now you would get, her body was decomposed quite a bit, so that would make things different too. But even, nowadays you could even get DNA from maybe even like that belt that was there or whatever, so.
Yeah. So where's the belt? Where's the button?
Yeah. I mean, where did those go? Who knows? But, it's just crazy. I don't know. So many questions.
There's a lot of questions. Like I said, we're barely scratching the surface on this, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions when we get off the podcast. But so that's it. That's all I have for today. Okay. And I wanted to just kind of close up by giving a few announcements. Like I said, we did have our contest and we have our winner. So yay! We've met our goal of 1,000 people on Facebook and 1,000 on Instagram. So
thank you. I think there was like at least, what do you think, 50 or so entries?
Oh gosh, yes. It took forever to write everybody's name down. Some people we wrote 3 or 4 times because they shared so many times. We're overwhelmed.
Thank you.
Yes, we're overwhelmed by the support. And of course, like I said a couple of podcasts ago, we do. We love you. We always say that. But we're getting better as we progress, right?
Yes.
We're starting to really feel comfortable in the podcasting zone. So stick with us, because we've got a lot of fun things that are coming up really, really soon. Our next case, we will be doing a little bit of a field trip for that, and we will have some information.
Stay tuned.
Yes, we will have some information on that in the coming days. So, Lisa, do you have anything else?
Just that you need to tell them all about the new countries, like the New Zealand.
I think it's just New Zealand. Is that the only new one?
Whatever. I feel like Finland was new. I feel like Finland was there.
We've been arguing about Finland all night. We could go back and listen to our old podcast where you make me name off the countries, and then we could tell. Okay, so I will name them off again, because that just gives you like a shot of dopamine.
It does.
I guess, I guess I will name them off. Okay, so U.S., Canada, Poland, France, Australia, Finland, Ireland, Germany, New Zealand, Turkey, Italy, Thailand, Switzerland, Norway, Slovakia, United Kingdom, Sweden, and wait, was Sweden always there? Yeah, it was.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm telling you, Amber, that was 17 and the last count was 15. So Finland and New Zealand. I'm just saying, I remember.
Hey, I just
17 countries, guys. 17.
I just got a new DNA estimate on Ancestry, and Finland popped up. So maybe it's one of my relatives.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, you know how it does the little circle, the little color. If you have DNA there, well, Finland has lighted up. So obviously, I've got, what do you call it? Finnish? I guess I have some Finnish ancestry.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Daryl was like, "Isn't Finland like where the people like in the movie Frozen lived? And I was like, I don't know.
I have no idea. No idea.
I was like, Anna and Elsa? What are you talking about? But anyway,
well,
go ahead. No, I will say this, please. We are just 2 months in, and we're really amping up some stuff. And of course, like down the road, maybe this summer or later or fall or whatever, we're looking at like merch coming, like all kinds of things are on the horizon. But I do want to say, please go in and rate us. You've got to help us out. So please, if you're listening, go rate us. And then go follow us, and then also share. So, 50 plus of you did share, and we so appreciate it. And then we're getting so many. It is. And we will be, I do want to get us a post office box. So a PO box. So if you wanted to mail, us, we're going to have that. So we've got the email, the unexplainedarkansas@gmail.
Yeah, I haven't had a post office box in years. I used to have one when I was in my 20s, and I thought I was so grown up because I had my own post office box.
Oh,
and I really don't know why I had one. I lived in an apartment.
That's really weird.
That's probably why. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I did.
You and your post office box. Okay. Whatever, Ambi. But especially if you're in these countries, and even everyone that is American like us, just please send us a message, okay? Just let us know where you're at, where you're listening from. So
I do want to read two new
Read
new
it.
things we got. Yes, 2 new reviews. Okay, this one is from Great to Be Free Again. It says, so good, 5 stars. My oldest son absolutely loved Amber as a teacher when she, that's so sweet. I am loving these podcasts, very tactful comedy with detailed stories. Keep up the great work, ladies. Oh, we're tactful. Yay. Okay. All right, so here's another one.
No, I'm just kidding.
I have tact. All right, so I listened to a lot of different. This is from Taylor and Rex. Okay, avid podcast listener. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. As an Arkansan true crime and paranormal fan, I love that this podcast got put on my radar. I'm learning so much about my own state. I have even asked my mom about some of the cases that happened.
Ooh, share.
Yes. So fantastic show. Makes the drive to work fun. Okay, so there's the 2 latest ones right there. So,
I love the messages. Yeah,
and we've had some emails too, but I don't have them pulled up, and I'll read them on the next one on part 2.
I am really bad about going into the email, I'll be honest. So I will try to do better. But...
I keep a check on our email like you do the Instagram messages.
Okay. Yeah. I try to do the Instagram, and anyway, sometimes, sometimes I sub people.
Yeah. Sometimes she works. Yeah. But as far as
sometimes I work.
As far as emails, Kip sent us 2 more stories. So we're going to look into those. So our buddy Kip. Yes.
Probably. Another listener series coming down the road. We have so many coming down the road. We're going to be covering Al Capone and his connection to Arkansas, and Amber's working on the Bigfoots, and we still have 27 more episodes of Ruby.
The cattle. Yeah. Did you say 27 more episodes?
No, but I'm saying Ruby is very important to us. So
she is. We have at least 2. We are, yes. And then I also have something I'm working on. It was a listener tip. There was supposedly some cattle mutilations that happened in the late 70s. And my son and I went to the archives at the Butler Center and did find some information on that. And it's pretty interesting because apparently there were those kinds of things happening all around the country at that time period. So we're going to we'll do a show on that because it is interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what's coming up. That is what is coming up.
Yeah. So we any business?
What? I don't have any more business. I just gave all my business, Blair. Can I go now?
No. She calls me Blair, by the way, because she's Joe from Facts of Life.
Yeah, we are.
We should, as it gets closer to Halloween, we're going to have them vote on which costumes we are.
Yeah, she wants us to be Blair and Joe for Halloween, and I want to be Thelma and Daphne, but we'll see which one wins. We're not even close to Halloween yet. So, all right, so that's it, and we are so happy that you guys listened, and we will see you soon for part 2 of the Ruby Stapleton case.
Thank you. Bye. See ya.